I'm doing a video on why I love atheists. Polls have shown that atheists are the least popular group by the non-atheists in the country. As for running for president, neither a gay nor a atheist, with atheists being the lowest category surveyed of individuals who the majority would not like to see become a president. This distresses me, as I have atheists in my family who I love, who are very kind and virtuous people, and I've met many atheists who you could say are secular saints, and that they devote their lives to education, to health care, that do all kinds of service and good deeds. And there are misanthropes among atheists on the other side of the spectrum who think that human beings are devastating the planet, that they're destroying ecosystems for all types of flora and fauna and the oceans. And what do atheists think? What could be their positive view of the cosmos and the world? I personally don't prescribe to the Big Bang Theory. I think the origin of the cosmos is just something that we don't know. There's not sufficient evidence to support the theory, as that we can't travel vast distances through space and see in another quadrant of the cosmos what the motions of all the galaxies and all the matter in space is. I prescribe more to the electric universe theory, that most of the cosmos is plasma with free-floating electrons generating giant electric currents and gargantuan magnetic fields attracting and repelling one another. So I think an atheist can have different views on science, and I think an intellectual and an atheist can say there's just certain questions like why is the cosmos, why is this all been created? That's a question that we just can accept that we don't know the why or the origins of the cosmos. In a positive side, what does the evidence now scientifically suggest for how we, the human species, became to exist as we are today as intelligent, sentient beings? Particles, subatomic particles, and atoms that were created. Originally, we don't know how, came together in a primordial soup, maybe with lightning entering in, forming amino acids and proteins and the very simplest forms of life, approximately 3.5 billion years ago. This too, we don't know, just like we don't know the creation of the cosmos. It is probably an easier to solve mystery, and one that's being diligently and obsessively worked on by teams of scientists around the globe at mostly research universities. From there, bacterium were formed, which in turn evolved to simple sea creatures. We're descended from atoms, molecules, bacteria, simple sea creatures, fish, which then evolved into the small uh, mammals, these small mammals, then evolved into apes, and then over millions of years, the apes may have evolved in different regions of the globe to form the different races. That seems to be the view of the Chinese and Russians, rather than a out of Africa story. If apes were in many places on the globe, migrating there between the ice ages, I don't see why humans couldn't have evolved in China as well as Africa. Being connected to atoms, particles, bacteria, the cosmos as the whole, is being an integrated part of who we are, that we're connected to it, that when we die, our atoms and particles then will be recycled, maybe into unintelligent, inanimate objects, isn't such a bad idea. And when somebody doesn't give angels, all the monotheistic religions have a high importance to angels, as they transmitted knowledge, and I just don't believe in angels, and think that man, through looking at evidence and reason, can try to understand the world around him. An atheist can have the courage to say that there are things that we don't know. So I love atheists. This was made by saying a beautiful young woman who was upset by atheists. Children can be indoctrinated and taught the value of labor, to be kind, to be loving, to be virtuous, without a religion. And from what we do know, probably from the evidence, that our ancestors only maybe 12,000 years ago were not religious. There's very little archaeological evidence from the Neolithic period of religion. We know that the hunter-gatherer bands shared their food as their body fat. When they find graves together, tend to be very similar, so they shared their food, they shared their hardships. They were probably quite practical, focusing on survival. Unlike today, they would have spent their whole lives with the same group of people and known them very intimately, and had intense, loving bonds with each other. I'm sure they sacrificed and shared with one another, while not being loving, to be virtuous, without a religion. And from what we do know, probably from the evidence, that our ancestors only maybe 12,000 years ago were not religious. There's very little archaeological evidence from the Neolithic period of religion. We know that the hunter-gatherer bands shared their food as their body fat. When they find graves together, tend to be very similar, so they shared their food, they shared their hardships. They were probably quite practical, focusing on survival. Unlike today, they would have spent their whole lives with the same group of people and known them very intimately, and had intense, loving bonds with each other. I'm sure they sacrificed and shared with one another. While not being perfect, we know that it was also much more violent, as these hunter-gatherer bands would sometimes come into violent conflict with each other, and there was probably violent interactions, maybe bullying or abuse within these hunter-gatherer bands. So I don't personally think that it was some kind of Garden of Eden utopia that our Neolithic ancestors lived in. Why atheists are so maligned and there's such intense emotions directed toward them is probably because beliefs are challenged, and the indoctrination that people received as children found fellowship and friendship and affection in their group. They feel that that is threatened. So I just thought I would put this out to kind of counter and to hopefully start people who are not atheists to think a little bit. That's all I have. Be kind, peace, and have a wonderful day.